Alright, so I wanted to explain this trade here on ABN AMRO. So first of all, look at this chart and notice the support and resistance levels and the empty space in between. This is a way understated point. Some people do, of course, I mean, obviously by elimination, something's not support or resistance, then it's space where the stock can move more freely, but I really want you to think about that. Look at this, right? This is it being hit like 100 billion times, and there's some different values within this sort of range of support, right? But I feel like those are all so similar, they belong to the same category, right? When you really look at this point over here, this is a separate point, right? This is just abstract pattern recognition. This is something for me, this, right? These are different levels of support. And this one could be debated, but you know what I mean? It's like, these are two different levels for me. Right? And you can see, when I first bought this, which was yesterday, you can see the RSI over here. I didn't open up the MACD, I didn't need it. You look at this, right? It was just into this support range, and I think I waited when this was going up, so it was breaking out of that underbought state, and it was breaking out of that bottom of the support line there, right? That's when I took the trade. Now you can see it bounced off that higher level of support there, so if you were scalping and looking at this 100 billion times a day, you could take these smaller moves, right? You could say, oh, take it to the top, take it to the bottom, take it to the top. With CFDs and commissions, I'm not sure how profitable that would be, and you could probably find a broker to suit your needs there. That's not really the point. The point is, looking at this trade, right? Let's talk about trend. Let's talk about momentum. Let's talk about volatility. Let's talk about support and resistance. My dear Lord, what am I missing out on here? Yeah, well, volume. I mean, no, wait, volatility and volume. Yeah, volume. So volume, I'm not really a volume-based trader yet. I don't do a lot with volume. That might be a weakness. Any piece of information you don't use is a weakness. I don't use fundamentals, right? Which I know that most day traders, actually, I was confused by this. Most day traders do use them. Do use fundamentals. Even algorithmic ones try to use earnings reports or whatever, those kind of things as well. Other kind of catalysts. And there's such a vast range. Like, you can always find a niche that's being underused. I'm quite sure. I mean, if you can do it with YouTube, you can do it with trading, right? Okay. So, this was a nice example. Like, let's look at the past, you know. Looking at this, when you get this kind of confirmation, if you took a trade here, or if you took a trade here, whenever it bounced off here, you would have gotten a really nice profit. I'm not looking at the history here, but looking at that, you could have taken some profits after it drops down a little bit, whatever your needs or strategy is. Okay, so the thing is, if you look at this, this was clearly an uptrend, right? Problem I have with my trading strategy, looking back on it, which is something I'm investigating right now, I kind of feel like trends are something you shouldn't just look at the general line, like the SMA line. You should see it as different cycles. I feel like the cycle is defined by a few things. It's based on the momentum, right? How much is it going up or down? Volatility. How much is it fluctuating? So momentum is like how strong is the trend in either direction. Volatility is how far are we going from that, right? And then the trend itself is just like whether it's going up or whether it's going down or vertical, right? And then volume, obviously, you know, if it's trading a lot during an extended period of time, and then it isn't. But that's not something I'm using right now. Those are sort of the things that you use in a trade setup. That's also what you use to identify cycles, right? For example, here you see that very clearly, right? So we have a sort of general channel here, and we broke out of that. And after we broke out of that, a lot of things could have happened. But what happened here is that we had a period of consolidation, right? With decreased momentum, decreased volatility. There's a little bit of volatility, but it is generally just less oscillation here, right? And then after that, apparently it breaks. I don't know if this is some sort of level of resistance, but after it broke out here, right? Yeah, this was a level of resistance. After it broke out of that, that was just like, boom, upwards momentum. And then after you hit this point, I feel like you need to again change directions, change approach, and reevaluate the position and the assessment. Like here, if you hit this bottom, this resistance twice, right? If you hit this and this twice, and it's now spiking down, would you say that this is still an uptrend, right? Would you still say this is an uptrend? I would say that uptrend stopped, and it might continue. It might just go like boom, boom, right? There's nothing inherently impossible about that. If you believe that, then you have perfect win rates and you become rich very quickly. So good job you. But the point is, there's uncertainty in the market at such a point, right? And we want to trade when we have information about what the next move is going to be, what the next cycle is going to be. So for example, breaking out here, I don't feel comfortable, right? And then we enter a period of consolidation. I don't feel comfortable. What is it gonna do? Like, our RSI is showing all sorts of crazy values, but it's not really reliable. It's sort of like all over the place, right? I don't really get anything from the RSI here. I don't get anything from the volatility or momentum. It's just purely waiting for something to happen, right? And maybe you can argue that this indicates that we're still in an upward trend. You may look at the larger time frame and say, well, really, are we on an uptrend? No, not really, right? So there's really nothing pointing in either direction that specifically. This would not be a good trade setup in my opinion at all. Okay, so now for the next part. So we reached down here and we sort of hit this bottom, right? This is where I felt is back then, right, is a good moment to trade. But really, when I look at it now, the reason I disagree is because I don't feel like you should be drawing it like this, right? I don't feel like that's a fair assessment. It's just like over here. It's like saying, you know, if this consolidates for a while, if this is going down like this, it'll just keep going down, right? It'll go under 6 and it'll keep declining because that's what it does. Like, no, right? You want to have an indication of a trend. When a trend is starting, you want to trade with the trend. Or let's say if you have an overarching trend and you had a pullback and now you have confirmation that the trend's continuing. So you have a larger trend, right? And a smaller trend reversal indicator, right? Or you're just like starting a trend, right? Things like that. You don't really want to trade fully against a trend or trade a very extended trend and just say, yeah, it's going to continue even further. No, you want some sort of a pullback and then confirmation that you're continuing, right? And then it goes on for a while. Okay. So that's a lot of information in one video. Essentially, the gist of this is I'm an idiot. Now, if I want to figure out if I want to close the trade, looking at this, right, this is like my general stop loss. I do feel like this oscillating has more potential to go back up, especially considering what it came from. I feel like it's probably going in the upwards direction. Probably, right? It is still on a sort of general uptrend, and it is still sort of bullish, a bullish market. The market could crash, but you know, my stop losses are pretty decent. So I feel like it's like a 60% chance. It's like very thin, but good enough to not close the position. Alright, that's it for this one. Hope to see you in the next one.